Okay. Let's get started. We have a very full day. Chairman Williams could not be here for the beginning. He will come later in the day. So I will chair the meeting until he comes. Nicole, can we do a roll call?
Mr. Armenter? Ms. Barrios? Here. Mr. Campbell? Mr. Casalot?
Here.
Mr. Clark? Ms. Gonzalez?
Here.
Mr. Johnson?
Here.
Ms. Valencia Jones?
Here.
Ms. Jessica Jones?
Here.
Mr. Laborde?
Here.
Ms. Martin? Mr. Mitchell?
Here.
Mr. Murray? Mr. Nelson?
Here.
Ms. Slaughter? Ms. Smith?
Here.
Mrs. Starnes? Ms. Wagner?
Here.
Ms. Werner?
Here.
Mr. Williams? Dr. Gonzalez, we have a quorum to begin.
Thank you. Ms. Smith, can I ask you for an invocation now?
Sure. Thank you. If everybody would please bow their heads. Dear Lord, we thank you for the opportunity to come together today as a committee to evaluate candidates for the next president of the LSU system. We ask for discernment in mind and heart, and that you be with all of us today. We also ask that you be with the candidates as they go through the questions in the process of being considered for our next president. Thank you for your constant love and your support and the gift of our Savior, our Lord Jesus Christ. Amen.
Thank you. Ms. Warner, can you do the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Do we have any public comment, Nicole? We don't have any public comment. We need to approve the minutes of the previous, of our previous meeting, which should be in this folder. Have you, do we have minutes, Nicole? Okay. I'd like to ask from Parker if we have any new candidates.
Dr. Gonzalez, good morning to everyone. Hope there's not a massive feedback on your end because there is on my end, but we'll plow through. We do have one additional candidate, and so one candidate submitted their materials yesterday for consideration. It is Dr. Bill Tate, and Dr. Tate is the provost at the University of South Carolina. We alerted the committee last night as it relates to his candidacy, and we had a conversation on our call last week, or Zoom last week, as it relates to new candidates. And so we did exactly as we had discussed previously. As soon as a new candidate was brought into the process, we sent that immediately to you last night. And Dr. Gonzalez, what I would suggest this morning is we do exactly what we did yesterday or last week when we considered candidates. And that is there anyone that would like to advocate to invite Dr. Tate in for an interview? A very similar process that we did last week. And then depending on the decision of the committee, we will get him scheduled if that is the will of the committee.
Thank you, Lori.
Madam Chair, I would nominate
Thank you.
Bill Tate.
And it's,
Support that.
thank you. I see a consensus for interviewing Dr. Tate. So if we could schedule that interview.
We will do that. We will reach out to him immediately to begin the process of getting him scheduled, and then we'll alert you all once that has been completed.
Okay, thank you so much. We have a few minutes until we start the first interview. I think it is scheduled for 9:30. I don't know that we want to start it early. I don't know that the candidate is early. But Lori, maybe you want to confirm that we do have this the candidates waiting for interview today.
We do, and we have a few things I think we need to discuss before we start with the interview process. One, I want to talk a little bit about process today and how that will unfold. We have a list of questions that you as committee members have. We have a number of members of the committee who are not here today, so I want to make sure that the assignments that are on these questions, that you have that figured out as to who's going to ask in the absence of others. I also want to remind you as a committee today that you are still very much recruiting candidates. So as much as you will be judging candidates today, they will be judging you. One thing I might suggest, and I'm not sure if the IT people can tell us, so all we can see on the screen are 2 members of this committee with 3 blank chairs. And so from a sense as a candidate perspective, that's not a good look. So if we perchance can get people who are in the room into those 3 empty chairs, I'm not sure if there's an opportunity for this camera to work so that we could see multiple members of the committee at one time. Okay, so there is movement. Okay,
That's
good.
Okay.
Great.
Perfect.
Otherwise, it was looking a little funny from us, and so it would have been hard for a candidate. So Zoom interviews are not the easiest of processes from that perspective, but they do allow you in a time of a global pandemic to be able to see candidates and to keep people safe and from that standpoint. So I feel good about that we'll be in a good place to be able to see the members of this committee because I think that's an important. So Dr. Gonzalez, let's start real quickly with just the questions. I know that Chairman Williams is not there today. So Dr. Gonzalez, will you just take that first question in his absence as well?
Of course, yes.
Okay, so you'll have the first 2. And then as we go forward, I know that there's 2 individuals that are slotted. So Dr. Nelson, if you're the first person on question 3, if you'll just, whoever's in that first person slot, if you are there, if you'll please ask that question, that would be great. So I see Dr. Nelson there. So you'll be next there. On number 4, do we have both individuals there today?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So
Yes.
Jessica, if you'll ask it this first interview, and then to the next interview, you guys can switch it up however you see fit. Is Hannah there today?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, I see Hannah. Hannah, you're right there on my screen. So Hannah, you'll have that one. I know that Lori Martin is not there this morning, so
I think I saw
Roland,
Roland in the corner.
okay, Roland, you've got that one?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, perfect. Glenn, are you there? I didn't hear that on the. I know that Dr.
think-
Clark.
I don't think either one of them are there, Laurie.
Okay, so is there someone that can volunteer to take question 7 in their absence?
Hearing no one else, I'll be happy to take it. It's Clarence.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Clarence.
Clarence. All right, number 8, I know Valencia, I think you were there, so you've got that one. Number 9, Dr. Gonzalez, we need to assign to someone because we had not assigned that previously. So is there anyone that would like to volunteer to ask number 9?
I'll do that.
Marianne?
Thank you. And then Clarence, you've got number 10. And then I didn't hear Remy available, but I know Mary, you were there. Maybe I misheard on Remy. Was he there?
Ramey will be here a little later.
Okay, perfect. Mary, will you take that one in his absence?
Yes.
Perfect, thank you.
The only
And
thing I
then-
would say, Laurie, is for 10, we have Clarence and Lester Johnson. So I don't know if Lester's there. That may be an opportunity for him to ask 10 since Clarence has taken 7.
Lester is here.
Okay. Do you want to do that just so
Alright.
we can have more committee members asking questions?
Sure. So Lester, you're going to take 10 since Clarence doing us a favor on another one, if you don't mind. And then number 12, Dr. Gonzalez, if you'll just circle back and ask that last question as well in James's absence, that would be great. So the flow, Portia is going to talk just a little bit about the flow and how it's going to work, so you'll be prepared when we begin that interview process. Portia, you want to lead them in that?
Absolutely. So obviously we're broadcasting this meeting live. We're having the candidates who are engaging live as well. So they will obviously be on remotely. Because of that, we are trying to ensure some level of ensure that the interference does not occur as it relates to a candidate getting on to a link early. So we have established, and that is Nicole and team has established links for each particular interview process. So we're doing that on the back end, and Nicole and I think Josh is online as well, making sure from an IT standpoint, everything flows. So what has happened is each candidate has received a panelist link for the Zoom webinar. I am behind the scenes texting the candidate, just kind of letting them know where we are in the process. So I will alert the candidate to the exact time in which they will get on to the actual Zoom webinar. And so they'll log in maybe just a minute before. And once that person is online, Dr. Gonzalez, myself or Laurie will ask you then for permission to start so that we can just have a seamless transition into that. And then on the back end, we'll make sure that we have the person out of the room, and then we'll end the session. And with each person, we'll start a new session. So it's a lot of links that we're handling on the back end and for the public, but it again ensures that, you know, no candidate joins too early and interferes on a previous interview process.
That's right. Thank you so much for all the logistics on this. I know that you have been working really, really hard on this, and we thank you so much.
And Dr. Gonzalez, one other thing I just wanted to add is, as you all may be aware, we did have one withdrawal in the search process. So Dr. Marianne Rankin withdrew from consideration this weekend. So you will see that today you only have 3 scheduled interviews. You have an extended lunch break today. We apologize for that, but it's the only way from candidate schedules that we could make that work from that perspective. So I did just wanted to give you that information as well, in case you had not seen that as committee members.
Thank you. Yes, I think we had noticed that. But it's good to remind us. I also wanted to say that after finishing the questions, we may, if any member wants to ask questions in executive session, we need a motion for starting an executive session, and we can do that.
And I would say, Dr. Gonzalez, there is a separate link for executive session. So perhaps those on the ground can tell you exactly what the committee will be doing. I think you'll actually have to move to another room for your executive session conversation, but all candidates are receiving an alternate link in the event you want to go into executive session to ask more detailed questions about a candidacy.
Thank you. And again, I appreciate all the back end effort on this. I know how complicated this technology can be for these things.
One thing I wanted to emphasize, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
You may cover this, but one, I was going to ask for any advice you might offer. A long time ago, we talked about an evaluation rubric or something like that, but we haven't recently. But as I think towards tomorrow afternoon, how are we going to actually rank the individuals? And I want to ask that so that I'm thinking through this process as so I can take notes as to what might become important as we go forward.
Absolutely. I'd be more than happy to discuss that. So let's talk a little bit about today from the standpoint of, typically we would begin discussing candidates after every interview. Because these are being webcast live, that is not fair to candidates that are interviewing later in the process to hear your evaluation of candidates, what you liked and what you didn't like about a candidate, because then that will go into their potential conversations, because this will be web streamed for anyone and everyone who wants to review these candidates candidates. So we are trying to do everything we can within your open records, open laws, and open meeting laws to assure some level of fairness in the process. And so what we will do is we will hold all discussion of candidates until the end tomorrow. And so you've seen all candidates from that perspective. This committee is not going to rank candidates. That is not the job of this committee to rank. Your job is to forward unranked candidates, most likely 3 unranked candidates to the board. And so what we will do at the end of tomorrow is have a discussion as it relates very similar to what we did last week. And that is after you have all individually thought about the interviews, reviewed based on the position description. What's important is you wrote a position description that said, these are the things that we're looking for in candidates. You judge candidates based on that position description and those attributes. And then at the end of the day tomorrow, there will be a conversation that says, I would like to invite this person in for that next round. I would like to proceed with this. And I'm sure there will be dialogue as it relates to that. We'll determine how many of those candidates are there. Eventually, you may get into a position, depending on the number of candidates that get elevated for consideration. You may be in a position where you will have to vote. What we are going to ask you to do is to vote to remove candidates, not vote to select them. As you can imagine in a public process like this, if you were to vote for candidates, very quickly, all candidates will know how they ranked in this process. There's still another entire stage of this, of meeting with constituency groups, spending time with the board, and we want to ensure that those constituency groups get to see candidates. What we don't want to do is to create a dynamic where there looks like there is an overwhelmingly #1 candidate in this process, because if you are the individuals that are not in that poll position, you're going to have a concern from that perspective. So we will work through a process that allows for fairness, but also allows you to do your charge, which is to move unranked candidates to the next stage in this. So if I am you as an individual, I'm taking copious notes and thoughts on, does this person match what we originally agreed to on the position description? All of that work that was put into developing that document. Is this a person I want to learn more about? I want to emphasize again the same thing we talked about last week. You are not selecting the president today. That is not your objective, or tomorrow. Your objective is, who are those candidates I want to continue to learn more about? This is not a hiring board committee. The board will ultimately make those decisions with feedback from all of the different constituency groups as it relates to who that next president will be. So, Luke, if you'll just think about it from the standpoint of, these are the candidates I really want to see elevated to that next round, and that's how the discussion will be had tomorrow afternoon.
Thank you, Lori. That was very good reminders, especially for learning, getting information from the answers to the questions.
So the only other thing I wanted to add, Dr. Gonzalez, about today is your final question to these candidates is, what questions do you have for us? Some of these candidates will absolutely specifically talk to individual members. So they may say, to Hannah, tell me your perspective of this, or they may say to someone else a specific question. Obviously, those are easy. If it is a question that is kind of open to everyone, if you're the person in position to best know the answer to that, please feel free to go ahead and answer that question for them. I think the questions they have for you can be very important as you start to make decisions as to whether or not this is someone you're interested in, but it equally will help the candidates determine if they want to continue in the process as well. So just as you go through that process, there's no reason to, to worry about who's answering it. If it makes sense for you to answer it, answer that question as they go forward. Some of your candidates today will talk in bullets, so you'll get through all of these questions. Some of your candidates may be storytellers, and storytellers are great, but they tend to go a little longer in interview settings. So Dr. Gonzalez, about halfway through the process, if you may say something to the committee, if it looks like you're running a little long, if you'll say to the candidate, we have halfway through, we have 10 questions left to ask, or something to that effect, to give them a sense of a little nod prodding of, hey, we need to move forward in this process. My hope is they are cognizant of the time that they have for each of these questions, but it will go very quickly. And so there will not be a lot of time for extensive follow-up on these questions. If you want to get through all of these, it's pretty much you're going to have to ask those questions and potentially give them a little wink that says, hey, you need to move along in your answers as well. So Dr. Gonzalez, if you'll do that, that would be great.
I understand. Thank you.
Thank you.
Winston, do we need any more advice
No,
from you or the
No,
floor?
I was just going to explain, we'll move right down the hall for executive session. It's just the room at the end of the hall, and they'll have a private link set up for the candidates.
Okay.
And keep in
And that
mind
we-
that this is going to run like a clockwork, right? So timing is very important. So if you think you're going to go into executive session, you're going to have to very quickly move this, because you can imagine we have candidates lined up for 15 minutes after your first one ends. So it's a constant movement of this. And what we're not going to be able to do is to wait to start those other interviews, because these people have schedules and lives as well. They're kind of dived out or created some time for us in this day. So if you could please just continue to keep this on time, it would be very, very helpful for us.
Winston, could you give us some more specific examples of the topics that should go into executive session that should not be asked here in public?
Those topics would include candidates who've been involved in litigation, for example, candidates who as executives may have fired people, candidates that may have encountered certain charges against them over their career, plagiarism, dishonesty, candidates that may have had coworkers allege things about them. That's the type of stuff that should be handled in executive session. And invariably, if you've been an executive long enough, you will have upset somebody. And so candidates may simply have information they want to share with you before you would find it in an internet search.
Thank you.
So Dr.
Winston-
Gonzalez, your candidate will be joining in the next 3 minutes. So I just wanted to give you a
Yes.
quick heads up of that.
Yes.
So quickly, are we expecting to do executive session for every candidate so that we can ask these questions? Is that a recommendation, Lori, or?
I
Winston.
personally, unless you have a very specific question that you want, if you think about the fact that you're all going to have to travel to another room, right? So there's 15 minutes of you traveling to another room, having candidates Zoom link in. So unless you have a dying question to ask, remember that there is another step in this process from that perspective. So, you know, you've all been provided with feedback, and you've all, I'm sure, done your searches and those types of things and information that we've provided to you. But unless this is going to be a deal breaker to you, in order for you to move that candidate forward, I wouldn't suggest that you haphazardly go into executive session. I'm not sure you have enough questions for each of these candidates to go into executive session on every candidate.
Thank you.
It is
Okay.
important for the fairness of this process that we are consistent with the questions that we're asking. The only way for you to judge candidates equally is to ask them the same questions. These questions were developed based on your position description. So there is a system as it relates to equity that we're asking. We're judging candidates based on the same information. So I think unless you have a very specific question that's going to deter you tomorrow from making a decision on a candidate, you will barely get through the questions that you have here.
Lori, just maybe a different observation. If you go into executive session for a couple of candidates and not for the others, might that not raise some questions? Typically you go into executive session whether you need it or not, just so it doesn't create concerns or, speculation. Just an observation.
Sure. No, I think anytime you go into executive session, specifically based on what Winston just said are the reasons you go into executive session, the types of questions that you are going to set up that expectation from that perspective. The only thing I would say to you here is if you think you have a question that needs to go into executive session about a specific candidate, you may want to share that with Winston and say, hey, Winston, I think I'm going to want to go in executive session with this candidate. We did not receive any questions from members of this committee indicating anticipating an executive question type thing that would make us go into executive session. So if you're holding questions from that perspective, just keep it in mindset that you have an hour and 15 minutes. If you think you're going to go into executive session, I think we've got our candidate here starting. So Dr. Gonzalez, we can pick this up as we go forward.
Yes, let's get started then with Dr. Alexander.
I think he's joining us right now. Just give him a minute or two to log in. And committee, they know who is on the committee, so you do not have to go and introduce yourselves.
Dr. Alexander, it looks like you're on and the committee's ready. There you are.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning, Dr. Alexander. It's a pleasure to have you with us virtually. So Chair Williams is not here, so I'm leading the first question. Please give us a 5-minute overview of how your experience has prepared you to be president of LSU.
Well, let me say thank you, first of all, for this opportunity. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes, thank you for this opportunity to interview for the presidency of LSU. This is a delight for me. This is I am honored to be here. I am originally, just a little bit of background on me, I'm originally from New Orleans, and I'm visiting you today from the great state of Arkansas, where I'm in my 8th year as chancellor of the University of Arkansas at Pine Bluff, one of our nation's treasured HBCUs. And it is a jewel in the University of Arkansas system. I attended school in Orleans and Jefferson parishes, graduating from West Jefferson High School in Harvey. I went on to UNO and graduated in 4 years with a degree, worked for the newspaper there as editor-in-chief, and then went to graduate school at the University of Florida, where I studied journalism and communications. Along the way, I did do a couple of internships, one at the Houma Daily Courier, and also at the New Orleans Times-Picayune. And the Times-Picayune called me and offered me a full-time job, so I was there for about 3 years. And then I started to follow my passion into constitutional law and civil liberties. So I enrolled in Tulane Law School, finished the program there, took the bar exam, and I passed the bar, and I still hold my bar license today in the state of Louisiana. And but while I was in law school, something really good happened. I won a competition to the law review, and that piqued my interest a great deal in academic scholarship. Also, while I was in law school, I was a 3rd-year senior fellow, in which I got to teach first-year law students about legal research and writing under the supervision of a professor. So with those 2 or 3 things coming together, I began to shape my life and my career for my calling, which is in higher education. So fast forward, I moved on and worked at Temple University, University of Florida, and now at UAPB. Let me just say, University of Florida, I love the experience there. I was there for 22 years at Florida, and I moved up the ranks from untenured assistant professor to a tenured full professor. And at that time, had a wonderful time there, had a great development for just an opportunity such as this. I received some of the greatest honors that the university can afford, including I was the 12th Distinguished Alumni Professor. It's an award that's given only once every 2 years to one faculty member. And I was the 12th Distinguished Alumni Professor and among hundreds of nominations. I was also in the inaugural class of inductions into the Academy of Distinguished Teaching Scholars. That's quite an honor, and you get to keep the title of Distinguished Teaching Scholar for the rest of the career there. And also, I was awarded a University Research Foundation Professor for my research and the work done there. And I was honored with the Florida Blue Key Distinguished Faculty Award. More specifically, the preparation for this kind of opportunity was that I served as chair of the Department of Journalism, served as associate dean in the graduate school for 7 years. I also served as the director of the Office of Graduate Minority Programs, serving the entire university and all of the departments with regard to the recruitment and retention and graduation of PhD students throughout the institution. And I can talk more about that later. Nevertheless, I got the opportunity to be an inaugural provost fellow, where I worked in the Office of Academic Affairs as a fellow at the university. I also had the unique opportunity of being an SEC university fellow. That's the Administrative Leadership Development Program, where I met many colleagues from across the SEC in that leadership development program. And I also was honored to win national awards for my teaching and research. Earned a PhD along the way from Florida State University, another great university. It's 20th ranked now. UF is now, I guess, about 6th rank in the nation. But in 2013, I became chancellor of the University of Arkansas at Pine Bluff. And UAPB is a land grant university, an 1890 land grant university. So our land grant is joined together in twice-a-year meetings with all land grants, including leaders at LSU in Florida, both land grants, with the Council of Presidents at the Association for Public and Land Grant Universities. And we do get to exchange, we do get to work together, we do get to talk about common issues. Since I've been there at the university, we have made great strides in our strategic approach and processes. We've been able to improve student success dramatically. Our academic programs and research programs have grown significantly. We've had increases in research grants, and our community and governmental relations are at a high right now. Development and fundraising have been very good, including 2 of the largest gifts in the university's history. I'm interested, let me say, in this position at LSU. And let me just say the family is also interested. My wife, Veronica, is also from Louisiana. We have 3 sons, all college graduates. One is a farmer in Florida, and he's married, and he has 2 kids who are working the farm as well. Middle son, David, is a graduate of UAPB, and he is working at the 3rd largest bank in Arkansas. And our youngest, Tyler, is a graduate of another HBCU at Morehouse. And he went on to the University of Arkansas for Medical Sciences for his PhD in interdisciplinary biomedical sciences. And he's now a postdoc fellow doing cancer research at the St. Jude Children's Research Hospital in Memphis. Let me be quite frank, I love Louisiana. I'm from Louisiana. I love LSU. I've been a Tiger fan, a part of Tiger Nation for a long time. I believe, frankly, I was born to be a Bengal Tiger. Why do I say that? Well, I'm glad you asked. Well, because I was born October 31st, 1959.
All right.
Yes.
Okay.
That is the honest truth. And for those of you not familiar with that date, that is a legendary day in Tiger Nation, in which Billy Cannon ran his way into the record books and the Heisman
Yes,
and
it is.
everything else. But also, I love the opportunity to join with the board of supervisors, the governor, and legislators, and work together with the stakeholders to elevate this flagship university in prominence nationally. though honestly, I would really miss my dear friends in the UAPB family. I would get to visit because I'm right next door and they would get to visit, but I would love the opportunity to return to the capital city and bring my 34 years of leadership acumen in public universities back home to the Bayou State, to lead an accomplished team in the great LSU system. And I want to impact the lives of low-income students like me, who are looking for the opportunity to advance and who need access, they need opportunity, and they need an affordable option. And that's what LSU provides for those students. And I'd like to build on the success that LSU has had in furthering its strategic plan. And there are a number of items in the strategic plan, but I won't go through them right now. But those are some of the reasons, some of the things that are pulling me at applying for this position at LSU.
Thank you so much. We do have a long list of questions for you, although you have hinted at some of the answers already. But let me ask you, you described a bit of your vision for LSU as an institution system, including LSU Ag Center and health centers. Could you please briefly describe some short and long-term goals and metrics to measure your success?
Sure, I'll be glad to. LSU has many strengths, and LSU is a real economic driver for the state of Louisiana. And I think as a guiding principle in terms of this opportunity and the presidency is that we should look to draw closer and operate more as a system. I'm in a system at the University of Arkansas Pine Bluff in the Arkansas system. And I know how trying that can be at times, but I know how we get together from time to time and work together on common goals. So we want each campus working on and prioritizing their strengths while coming together around a strategic plan for the system. That's going to be the guiding principle. And then first off, as a foundational matter, I'd like to expand access to higher education to all the people of Louisiana who would like to go, including those traditionally underrepresented students. I think, and you said a goal, some metrics for that are fairly clear, and I think you're keeping those metrics right now on the diversity as it relates to access to public higher education in the state. And it's a matter of setting a goal for making substantial progress in the shortest period of time. That is along 3-year, 5-year, 10-year plans. Secondly, keeping student success at the forefront of each institution's strategic plans and for the system itself. And that's something that LSU is having some success with, but I believe that coming on board, we can certainly look at ways to drill down even further on that. We'd like to increase technology, and that's in a 5-year plan. We'd like to increase technology to assure state-of-the-art technology in classrooms and labs. That's also on the 5-year plan. And this is very, very important to the state of Louisiana, as it is to Arkansas, is getting a National Center Institute designation. And to move that up as a priority in the state of Louisiana. Arkansas, Louisiana, and Mississippi are 3 states that do not have an NCI center. And I believe it can be done in those states. Arkansas is working hard on it. UAMS, which is in our system, got some incentive funding and seed monies from the legislature to the tune of about $10 million a year to really get them going. And there's also philanthropy going on around this. So everyone in Arkansas is pulling together around this cancer center. The same thing should happen in the LSU system, and LSU should be the leader in that regard. And just a couple of other things, we'd like to increase research and grant productivity, working in interdisciplinary ways across campuses and across boundaries of campuses, so that the interdisciplinary and multidisciplinary faculty and researchers and PIs on those campuses can have opportunities to engage and to come together around that. And then We'd like to look at the collective impact of all those campuses on economic development. I think the LSU system is doing a great thing in that regard. And lastly, we'd like to enhance the reputation of the LSU system, institutions on a 10-year goal of improving institutional quality as measured against peers, including regional and national rankings. So we would be using rankings as a tool in that regard, and that's something that can be done over a period of 10 years.
Thank you. Mr. Nelson.
Good morning, Chancellor. Can you please describe your leadership style with emphasis on hiring, delegation, and decision-making?
Thank you, sir. That's my leadership style could be described simply in simple terms that we try to be collaborative in our research and in our decision making. We try to be collegial in our approach to it, approach to other people and bringing them in. We want to be inclusive on decision makings, on decisions that we have to make, but we also want to come to the table, and it is the leaders' need to always bring visionary and entrepreneurial approaches to the table in terms of those decisions that have to be made, especially in environments where resources are limited. That's going to be necessary. And you said specifically in the areas of hiring, delegation, and decision making. I think in hiring, it's my practice to look for people, of course, who meet all of the knowledge, skills, and abilities for the particular position in which they seek, or in which our needs have been presented. Then we want folks who have a good work ethic. Sometimes it's hard to determine a work ethic, but we try to look underneath the layers to see where that is. We like to hire people who are knowledgeable about higher education and their role in it, who are knowledgeable about the future of higher education, who have some presence in it and currency in it. I also like to hire folks, and this is especially true, who work well with others. We have to get people who can fit in and work well with other people and have a reputation for doing that, for working collaboratively. And then we need more people who are open and optimistic about improving their area of the university. That's very important, especially in tough times and in tough economic times. Delegation, I believe in delegating work and delegating authority. I am not a micromanager, and I don't care to become one. As a leader of the institution, I count on divisional leaders to lead and to manage their areas and to keep me informed of serious issues that may arise in their areas. And also in decision making, I love to make decisions using lots of data, lots of information, relevant data, and viewpoints that are collected prior to rendering a decision.
Thank you. Ms. Jones?
You have seen LSU Title IX issues in too many headlines. How do we make protection of students, faculty, and staff from sexual harassment, discrimination, and assault a hardline priority for all institutions of the LSU system?
Thank you for that question. This is Title IX issues have been at the forefront on all of our campuses. And we're all working diligently to institute and follow practices that require timely reporting, investigation of incidents that are reported when they occur, whoever reports it, and that these investigations reach a timely conclusion or adjudication that's as complete and as fair as possible. The circumstances at LSU, we've all seen them, we've read about them in the newspapers, and LSU is in the national spotlight right now, particularly for its handling of Title IX cases. And it just seems to me that the question implies the answer. We have to make it a high priority and a hardline priority. The key is to take this opportunity to engage, to educate, to inform faculty, staff, students. Take the opportunity. Don't let this moment of opportunity pass by without the universities and all of its campuses bringing about, using this moment of urgency, really, for change within processes, within procedures, and change that will result, we anticipate, in a cultural change in how we look at Title IX cases. Understand that Title IX cases involve people who have been harassed and discriminated against and who have been abused. And it is our responsibility, first and foremost as a university, to keep our students, faculty, and staff safe. And to keep them safe from that kind of involvement or harassment or abuse. And so the Hush-Blackwell report, or review rather, of the Title IX issues at LSU made a number of recommendations at the end that really mapped out for the campus a blueprint. For all the campuses, it mapped out a blueprint for how we can take the risks that are known and the risks that are involved and take this matter seriously and give it the hard, high priority that it needs, and make a substantial change in the way that we do it. Alter this, turn this story around into one in which we have at the LSU campuses the very best practices in terms of reporting, in terms of follow-up. But it is going to take an investment of funding, which I'm certainly in favor of. It is going to take an investment of time and effort because there is training going on, but there needs to be a great deal more training and education in order to get at the heart of the matter. And we need to remember that all of these cases and complaints require empathy on the part of the institutions. Institutions, the bigger they are, sometimes it can be difficult to find that, but we must break through the size of the institution and the bureaucracy of an institution and get to the heart of the matter with empathy and with caring and with follow-up and keeping victims and folks who report these things informed and engaged in the process.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Ms. Barrios?
How would you ensure LSU campuses remain student-centered? Please describe how you interact with and engage students, specifically in the area of fostering student success. How do you incorporate student input and respond to their needs and concerns?
Oh, thank you. That's a great question. And I think that, we all work with this on our campuses and on our campus. What we want to do is, by and large, overall, we want to give students a sense of belonging on the campus. And giving a student a sense of belonging, we like to say at UAPB that we're the university with a personal touch. And in order to be impactful and to give meaning behind that statement, it means we have to care about our students, we have to listen to our students, and we have to resolve issues that our students are having. So we take it very seriously on our campus. I personally meet with the offices of the Student Government Association twice a month to hear their concerns. I join with leaders on my cabinet to meet many times outdoors. We have something on our campus we call Tower Talk. And that's outside our historic and iconic bell tower. That's in the center quadrangle of the campus and is a gathering place for students. We use that opportunity to have Tower Talk, where all of our top administrators are meeting with students. Students get to meet with them face to face, and there's a conversation and dialogue, a Q&A. We try to respond to everything there. Anything that's not responded to there is followed up later on. But those things, we haven't been able to do them in the pandemic, but we have had to substitute with Zoom calls and things of that sort. We also survey our students periodically through the Division of Enrollment Management and Student Success. All of these are designed to identify issues that are common among groups of students and the entire student population. In addition to that, we like to engage students in high impact practices. I think those are opportunities to engage students and keep them on board and keep them focused and moving toward their academic goals. Things like internships, undergraduate research opportunities, study abroad opportunities, service learning, leadership opportunities, all of these, first year experience, all of these are opportunities that we have to engage our students. And those are ways that we certainly would like to ramp up at LSU. There are a number of students, and we want to have student success. And at our university, we've got the numbers to prove it. We've quadrupled our 4-year graduation rate. We've doubled our 5-year rate. We have increased our 6-year graduation rate by 66%, and we've increased our first-year retention rate from 55% to 74%. Now, these are not the ultimate goals of these numbers, but this is just to illustrate that we take that very seriously on our campus. And I've noticed that LSU has had some success as well in increasing those numbers. It's going to be important for LSU to continue to bear down on those practices that they're engaged in to assist students in that regard. We have engagement going on in residence halls. We have the kind of engagement with faculty. We have enrollment management engaging in the Student Success Center. We have the athletic department engaging students in the Student Athletic Center. And we have other specialized areas on campus, like the Student Services Program and the TRIO program, which is funded by the Department of Education. All of these opportunities are available to our students. We need to look inside Louisiana State and see where we're having those successes and where we can move in even closer and even use data to predict and to see which populations need greater help in particular areas. So we need to do it with data, and we need to follow that data and come up with those solutions that are most important and that will be most effective for the individual campuses at LSU.
Thank you. Of course, Hannah, is our student representative. So this was a very appropriate question. Mr. Mitchell?
Sure. Good morning.
Good morning.
Tell us how you would approach leading and working with faculty. What are your views of faculty governance? Please describe your previous experience in leading, supporting, and growing research and scholarly activity.
Well, let me just thank you for that. That's a great question, because it's a question that hits home for me. I would seek to engage faculty early and often, mostly in collaboration with the provost office. Upon arrival, I would make it a necessary element in the first 100 days to visit each school and college and to meet with the faculty there. That's what I did in coming on board at my current university. I'd like to follow up then with small group meetings to hear faculty views about the institution and about their teaching and research. I'd like to join with the vice president for research and hear faculty perspectives on the opportunities for research grants and funding and and creative activities in their areas, and what are some of the barriers to getting and increasing productivity in teaching and research. Faculty governance is an essential part to advancing the mission of the university at LSU. I've gained significant experience in faculty governance. I've served 3 terms as a member of the Faculty Senate at the University of Florida, and coming on board at UAPB. I've engaged the faculty, and we have a combined faculty and staff senate, and I make it a point to go to every meeting, to be present, and to share with faculty and staff what's going on in my world and in our world and on behalf of the university. And this is key, and this is very important, to remain for questions, to allow faculty and staff to ask whatever questions they want. That's an opportunity that faculty have, and I believe in it. Your question was also about, there was a second part, research and scholarly activity. Yes, I came from a university that is, it's a very large research university, and when I left, I think they had about $700 million annually in research. Now it's about 800 million, and it's right up at the top of the SEC along with Texas A&M. But that is we worked hard at the university to grow the doctoral program in 150 fields of study, awarding 700 PhDs a year. And those are very real things. It's now about 800 million that they do. Also at UAPB, we've undertaken a number of initiatives to support research grant productivity, and apparently it's beginning to pay off. Just last week, we announced a $3 million grant from a $3 million research grant from USDA. And in addition, the work that is done in our programs really geared toward basic research and applied research. But one of the fundamental things that I would focus on in terms of faculty research and coming to LSU, should I get the opportunity, and that is preparing for the changes to come. It has been, they have let us know that coming up, and I don't know if it's going to come up in this Congress before or after they take up infrastructure. But one of the things that Congress is talking about and wants to do is to increase the research funding, the funding for research. And universities, as we know, are the greatest recipients of those research dollars. There's talk of increasing largely the amount going to places like NSF and NIH. And I'm one who will not wait until that happens, until the bill is passed. I think LSU needs to get in position now. We need to build the infrastructure, put things in place, build up the graduate program, increase the graduate assistantships, increase the support for faculty research now, so that when this comes down the pike, and it will span a number of years, LSU will be in a prime position to benefit from it. And many of those goals that I talked about earlier could be met in possibly some of them in a 5-year term rather than in a 10-year term.
Thank you. Mr. Kaslow?
Yes.
Please go ahead.
Good morning, Dr. Alexander.
Hi, good
I think
morning.
this question will follow on your previous response. In a time of limited and even shrinking resources in higher education, financial planning, budgeting, and resource allocations are important responsibilities. Budget cuts to higher education have resulted in many unfilled faculty and staff positions, lagging salaries, fewer graduate students, and higher tuition and overhead fees. How can the LSU system begin to address some of these issues over the next 5 years? And that's without assuming simply higher budgets or more money coming to us.
Right. Well, I think it's a great question. I think it's a question that I think about a whole lot. I think about day and night, because the circumstances that you described are circumstances that we face at our university. There's circumstances that I faced at the University of Florida. There's circumstances I've had to face as department chair in the dean's office, and beyond. So we have, and I tell you, it's a crushing blow when you're a department chair or dean and you're losing faculty, and the expectation is that you do more student credit hours and things like that. So to answer your question, I don't have a simple answer for you. I don't believe there is a simple answer to that question. I do believe, though, that one of the things that probably would need to do is commit ourselves to working on it and to working on it collaboratively. As leaders of the institutions, we are responsible for stewarding the taxpayer money and the donor money and the funds that we have in the most efficient manner possible. So once you've achieved those efficiencies, and it sounds like at LSU you already have, you've already done that. Now it becomes important for this university system to unleash a spirit of entrepreneurship and innovation on campus. Entrepreneurship and innovation that will be geared toward increasing revenues for the university. Now, that's not just my idea. That's an idea that's floated and that's beginning to be implemented across universities across the country. I believe that if you unleash the entrepreneurship, and that can be done in a number of ways. And there's some ways that we've tried to do it within our institution. And I know you say without increasing the budget, but one of the ways in which universities can immediately buffer themselves against the losses that they're suffering is by increasing revenue on the budget sheet. And they can do that by going wholesale into major gift fundraising and development. They can do this by, and that's the traditional way, by cultivating prospects, soliciting prospects, stewarding them, and we have lots of experience at doing that. It can also increase by increasing enrollment. And I did see enrollment increases were a part of your strategic plan and a part of your priorities going forward. That's another way in which revenues come in. And we cannot look at this as a silver bullet, that we're just going to increase the enrollment and that will satisfy our needs financially. No. We're going to have to do a number of things. We're going to have to raise funding through development. We're going to have to increase enrollment. We're going to have to increase online courses and online programs and enrollment. That is our future across the universities. We're going to have to forge public and private partnerships that result in strategic investment of resources from state government, from corporations and foundations, and from alumni and friends. I know in Arkansas, we are beating the bushes, looking at every single opportunity within and outside of state government to increase the revenue coming into the universities because we face many of the same issues. And those are the practices that I would bring to LSU as leader. Developing and upgrading the corporate partnerships through negotiating agreements that have resulted in additional revenue for us from vendors. Energy performance contracts have really helped us on the bottom line. Changing our dining services, our bookstore negotiation, our athletic sales have really helped us. Productivity formula funding has come in and increased our budget by $1 million. That's not a lot, may not seem like a lot, but when you're trying to increase revenue, every bit of it counts. And it goes toward other goals as well. Encouraging the sharing of resources among the universities, among the campuses, the sharing of space, equipment, personnel. One example I'll give is I saw in your strategic plans to go deeper into material sciences, nanotechnology, nanoscience, particles, very, very expensive equipment out there. And so it may not be the best use of resources to get all of the equipment on every campus, but to work out sharing agreements of equipment between scientists on different campuses. We also want to encourage working together and re-engagement of the governor, Governor Edwards. I would engage with Governor Edwards the same way I engage with Governor Hutchinson. And my engagement with Governor Hutchinson has led to, honestly, millions of dollars for our university because of our long-term engagement with Asa Hutchinson. We also work very closely with the leadership in the House and Senate in Arkansas. We work closely with our Board of Trustees, with our university system, and through our university system to get these additional resources. And also our leaders in Washington, Senator Bozeman, Senator Cotton, Congressman Westerman, and Congressman French Hill. We have established fantastic relationships with them so that they may be helpful in guiding us to those additional resources in particular areas of our strengths and our priorities. So we want to do that together here. Another thing that we do in Arkansas that I hope is happening in Louisiana, and if not, we would certainly do it there because I saw it in Florida as well, on things that were common and helpful to higher education, we worked together. We worked outside of the system lines. We didn't draw the lines and barriers there because the problems and issues were common across higher education. So those are ways in which we've got to increase the revenue, and we will continue working to increase revenue so that the university not only stays afloat, but that it would thrive and that it would be able to reach the levels of prominence and preeminence that we talked about early on as part of a strategic process.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Jones?
Dr. Alexander, you've touched upon this in previous responses. Please discuss your commitment to and experience enhancing diversity, including diversity as it relates to underrepresented groups, as well as diversity of thought, experience, et cetera.
Sure, thank you. Yes, I did. I have alluded to that a couple of times because, and let me just say, I think diversity, equity, and inclusion are very important points at universities. They've been important for all of my career and before. I'm sure it was an issue before, but DEI has become even more centered in the past year. Since our nation is engaged in this inflection point where social justice has moved to the forefront as an issue for our nation. And we in the academic community, I believe, have a responsibility to provide leadership for society in these areas. One way in which the university, and particularly LSU, can provide leadership in this area is by demonstrating how well it does its diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I mean, when I say that, I mean that very broadly defined as your question implied. And I mean diversity, equity in race and gender, sexual orientation, gender identity, LGBTQ, disability, socioeconomic status, language, religion, and you included thought. And that is another place in which we're at a crossroads where ideologies, and political parties, and differences among people should be respected in an institution of higher learning. And somewhere, some ways, we've gotten away from that fundamental principle. Now, I must put my cards on the table and recognize that I am a First Amendment scholar, and that I favor freedom of speech and freedom of press and assembly and religion, et cetera. But we also want to provide campuses that are safe places where people can express views, have views expressed, respect the opinions and views of others, and respect people for who they are, for their background, and for what they bring to the table. So back in the days, we used to do a lot of celebrating of diversity. My experience in this area, I think I've sort of alluded to it. I actually had a position, a DEI position at Florida, in which I served the entire university as the director of the Office of Graduate Minority Programs. And one of the things that we really, that I was focused on in that is giving those students at a PhD level a sense of belonging. increasing the numbers of graduate minority PhD students at this great university. And in order to do that, we needed to take care of their needs. We needed to increase funding. We needed to do that. So my plan in terms of increasing revenue was to go out and tap and get as much in terms of dollars as we could. So we went out and we did that. And we were able to get funding from NSF, from NIH, and various other sources. One of the things we did in this area was to hold a one-day grants and fellowships conference for students. It's a graduate student grants and fellowships conference, which we invited undergraduates to attend. And it was phenomenal. In the very first year, we saw dramatic increases in our NSF graduate research fellowships at the university. We also included in that, not just sciences, we included the social and behavioral sciences. We included the humanities. We included Fulbrights. So it was a day of grants and fellowships, and we timed it perfectly so that in the spring they would get the information, and through the summer they would write the proposal, and they would be prepared and ready to submit it by November when the deadlines hit. That's how we did it. But I want to mention something else in my background and experience, and that is serving as the chancellor of UAPB, an HBCU, an institution that prides itself on diversity, and has been, HBCUs are great filters and feeders, I should say, for diversity, for the workplace, for graduate education, and for professional education. So we are right there on the front lines at our university, providing students to places like LSU. So coming to that type of position, if those relationships are not developed and in place, that's some of the things that we should probably do so that those relationships are in place, so that students coming from, and who've been really, really good students coming from HBCUs can have that opportunity, and you can build on that and build that culture of diversity and inclusion and equity on all of the LSU campuses.
Thank you. Ms. Slaughter?
Thank you. Chancellor Alexander, COVID-19 has dramatically impacted campus life and daily life. What are your thoughts for the fall semester of 2021 and beyond for extended or new COVID protocols?
Wow, thank you for that question. I certainly wish I had a crystal ball that I could look into and predict how things are going to go and where things are going to come out, because we're dealing with those issues right now for the fall. Let me just say that fundamentally, and I've said this in various different ways, our jobs as administrators of the universities are first and foremost to keep people safe, to not walk them into hazardous conditions, or not to display any hazards, or to lessen or mitigate the potential harms that are facing our campuses. And those are things that keep me up at night, is working on keeping the campus safe. Having said that, we have also, in this pandemic, listened, read, and watched and participated in conversations with the Centers for Disease Control and our State Department of Health. And we have relied on the information from our State Department of Health, and it would in Louisiana, I'm sure you do as well, rely on that information from the Department of Health and from the CDC to help with creating plans for the fall semester. But there is, as there was at the beginning of the pandemic, a great deal of uncertainty and ambiguity. And that's the place in which we have to make some hard and fast rules. We have to put in some guidelines, we have to put in some policies. But the truth of the matter is, at this point, particularly, I guess our dream when we saw a light at the end of the tunnel in the vaccine was that everybody would be vaccinated, or at least 75, 80% of the population would be vaccinated and be before the fall semester, which would give us that grand opportunity to open everything that would look in many ways like it used to. However, with so many people rejecting the vaccinations, with people not showing up for a second vaccination where there are 2 required, there is a real concern in developing our plans for the fall that we are going to, our Board of Trustees has decided that all of our campuses will come back with face-to-face in-person instruction in the fall. So let me say that bottom line. We are coming back with face-to-face instruction in the fall. And I've alerted our campus to that expectation. But we may have to still have some distancing depending on the circumstances then. We are going to have to continue to watch the numbers vaccinated within our state. We're going to have to track the number of COVID cases in our state, just as we have for more than 1 year. And we're going to have to take that information and we're going to have to use it because also in the fall, we're going to have testing for COVID because COVID, it appears, may still be with us in the fall. We're going to have contact tracing in the fall for them. We're going to have quarantine. We are making plans to quarantine students who may test positive for the coronavirus. And we're also going to have vaccinations available on campus for students when they return. We're going to have to educate and communicate with students so that they go back for their second vaccinations. And the experts are saying that these vaccinations may have to be repeated. That is, all of us who took the prior vaccinations may have to be revaccinated or may have to have a booster shot of some sort. That's going to be a part of our agenda for the fall is how do we handle, and there's some moving parts, but there are a lot of different things before us. But what this year has taught us is that we can do it, we can get through it. It takes planning, it takes work, it takes dedication. And I believe the LSU campuses, I would expect would be making those plans for the fall. And I would certainly be available to comment and to work with chancellors and others on those campuses to bring those plans. But those campuses, much like our campus, our system allowed our campuses to develop those plans. And that's my sense, is that the president of the system ought not put his hands in those things. President of the system ought to let the chancellors of those campuses come up with those plans. And there are committees on those campuses, there are people on those campuses who are well qualified to do it. It's a delegated responsibility. So I would look forward to seeing what those plans are that come forward.
Thank you. Mr. Johnson.
Good morning, Chancellor Alexander. And thank you and your family for taking the time and effort necessary to apply for the presidency of LSU. And thank you also for offering to come home and do your part for the state of Louisiana. I think you've already touched on in some of your answers on some of my question, but if you would, please discuss your fundraising experience and thoughts on additional revenue generational opportunities and give us some examples of these.
Morning. Thank you for that question. It's a very good question. I believe, frankly, that one of the most important things, one of the most important contributions that a president can make to a university is in developing and raising funds for the institution in strategic areas where they're needed the most. I say that because, as I said before, there are folks all around campus who have responsibilities and duties, and when they carry them out, the university works, the university continues and moves. But there must be leadership from the president in this area of fundraising in order to be successful. I saw firsthand throughout my career how valuable fundraising is, how transformative it can be when it's done correctly and it's done well for the institution. At UAPB, I place a premium on fundraising, and it's paying off for us. So far, we've raised more than 25 six-figure gifts that are gifts of 100,000 or more to the university, with an average gift of more than $300,000 of those 25 or so gifts. In addition, we've received two of the largest gifts in the university history, the two largest gifts. One was a $2.5 million gift from Simmons Bank, which is located in Pine Bluff and is our primary bank. And the other is a $2.2 million gift from the Wingate Foundation, which is an Arkansas foundation that's located in Little Rock. My preparation for, and we've had alumni who have given tremendously to our university, and we call on them. We call on them frequently. We have about 3 or 4 actual simultaneous smaller campaigns going on right now for various things that are needed, and our alumni are responding in tremendous ways to us. So we're very excited about that. My preparation for leadership in the philanthropic areas began a long time ago when I was selected for that, and I mentioned that transformative university role that I had as the distinguished alumni professor. I was selected as the 12th distinguished alumni professor, a tremendous honor. But what it means is that you're the Gator Nation ambassador for the university, for the academic areas, for research achievements. And in that role, I got a seat on the University Athletic Association board. That's Jeremy Foley's board. Jeremy has since retired as AD. I was also given a seat on the National Alumni Association board, where I got to work with the leaders of the Alumni Association in planning and the work that they did with the staff of an alumni association. So I got to go behind the curtains and peek behind the scenes and work these various events side by side with development and alumni affairs, including me going to Gator clubs and back to college weekends for alumni reunions, UA Foundation board meetings. I was the principal speaker and lecturer at those meetings as guest lecturer, and at admissions events for prospective students and their parents. I'm committed. I'm deeply committed to raising funds for the university, for the flagship. I'm committed to assisting the campuses in any way that they would need from the system. One of the things that we did in a tremendous way at Florida was we used our access to athletics to help that cultivation and fundraising process. And I'm sure it's done at Tiger Stadium and in the other arenas of sports. We've also repeated that at the University of Arkansas at Pine Bluff. We use the games and the president's box and the various aspects of those offices to cultivate and to bring people closer to the university, so that on another occasion there will be conversations about fundraising. That's a way in which athletics, I believe, plays a very significant role in what happens across and at the rest of the university. So we've continued that, and I would look forward to providing leadership in that area as well.
Thank you. That's very appropriate for the next question from Ms. Warner.
Yes, thank you. That is the perfect segue to my question, Dr. Alexander, and thank you so much for your time. As we see our time drawing to a close, I just want to personally thank you for joining us this morning and offering your answers to all of our questions. So my question has to do with athletics. What is your vision for the success of LSU athletics and its role in the holistic development of the student athlete?
The in athletics, and I've had quite a bit of experience in athletics. As I mentioned in answer to the previous question, I got appointed to the University Athletics Association board at University of Florida, and I did that, and I got to watch one of the greatest ADs in the SEC annals, and that is Jeremy Foley. He did a fantastic job. He won the All Sports Trophy more times than anybody else, but he also took care of the financial parts of the association, and as well as building up and promoting athletics and the coaches and et cetera. But I would listen to him and all of the things that he did. And one of the things that he did very successfully is bring attention and recognition to students' academic success and achievement. It is great, and we all celebrate and we love it when our students win games, matches, when they win championships, individually and collectively as teams. We celebrate. The entire state celebrates when that happens. We should also celebrate in the same way when our students go off and gain these wonderful academic achievements. And that is what we do, and we try to do in our Division I program at UAPB. Your question is about what is our role in terms of the holistic development of the student? I think our role is to deal with those quality of life issues for students, is to assist them with their, to allow them to develop academically, to work with them and help them to develop physically to the top of their game and to the top of their sport. But it is also to tend to the nutritional needs of our students. It is also important to deal with the mental health issues that are related to competitive sports, and particularly sports at the highest levels in intercollegiate sports. These are sometimes student athletes go through some difficult things, and I think it's incumbent upon the university to be there for them, to provide them with access and with the support that they need. And some students are going to need other support. I'm going to have to be able to point students in the right directions. I think students get advising support, students get help and support with tutoring, but sometimes students need help with summer jobs. Sometimes students need help with financial aid. Sometimes students need help with like finding a job once they finish school. So athletics is becoming, because of what our student athletes mean to us, because they are our greatest ambassadors at times, and they conduct themselves well on and off the field. I think it's important that we look out for them in those key and important ways, that we provide them with the support that they need holistically, so that they can go out and be successful in life.
Thank you. Well, we reached the last question, which is actually turning the tables around. And first of all, I wanted to thank you for your very thoughtful answers and taking the time this morning to talk to us. But in these last few minutes, what questions do you have for us as a committee?
Well, I only have a couple of questions. One is, and they may seem a little broad, but they're legit, and that is, what indicators of success would the LSU system and the flagship like to see in the next 5 years? What is it? Is there a consensus around that? What would spell success to you in 5 years?
Well, I don't know if anybody wants to take that up. We, as LSU system, have a strategic plan, and we are the flagship state university in the state, but we want to reach a national level. We want to rise in academics as well as in athletics, but especially in academics to a national level. And that beginning to rise can be achieved, the system thinks, in the next few years. It shouldn't take 10 or 20 years. It should be achievable in the term of the next president.
Mhm.
I don't know if anybody else wants to share their opinions. Maybe Ms. Werner for the board.
And I welcome, we have a few board members here today, so I welcome their input as well. As Dr. Gonzalez very well said, we do want to see the university continue to grow and become that which we all in this room know it can be. And, research is certainly a primary focus. One thing we haven't quite touched on today is, the breadth of what the LSU system is and how we touch every aspect of life, not just in Louisiana, but also across the country, between our medical research, our agriculture programs, our hospital care, training doctors, and then all the things we do at each of our campuses in business, education, engineering, everything across the board. So looking at that in our strategic plan, which will be coming for update fairly quickly as well, be a new responsibility, how the university will continue to attain the goals, maintain what we've done, but then continue to grow and lead where we know we bring a unique set of experiences. We have faced a unique set of challenges that I think in the near future and looking out beyond, Louisiana and LSU can truly lead the nation on topics such as climate change, healthcare, and all the things that go with that, engineering, education, business development. There's so many opportunities. And so I don't want to go on and use up all your time, but I think that would would kind of open the door to maybe your thoughts on that position for the university.
I'd like to add something. Hi, Dr. Alexander. I'm from LSU Eunice, which is our only 2-year institution in the LSU system. And so what we're planning to move forward for Louisiana is to actually lessen equity gaps and educating the Louisiana population, especially in high poverty areas, and also focusing on educating individuals in our rural areas and identifying local talent and making sure that we're enhancing work and getting our individuals to work and increasing social mobility for individuals in Louisiana and throughout.
Thank you.
Dr. Alexander, I like to see metrics developed around diversity, equity, and inclusion, around not only hiring employees of diverse backgrounds, women, folks from underrepresented groups, but also giving opportunities to those who are already at our universities, at our campuses, preparing them for the next level in their career. So I'd like to see our next leader really put an emphasis on those metrics, putting metrics in place for each of the campuses, for each leader on our campus to be responsible for as part of their review process, as part of their growth, as part of what's expected of them in their roles.
Dr. Alexander, I'm going to add or build on something that you mentioned briefly, but unfortunately, when you look at our state, we rank too low in too many areas. And right now, exacerbated by COVID-19, all the problems with so much of the state's economy tied to areas that have been impacted. We've got these huge, wonderful, diverse parts of Louisiana, but we've got to find ways to monitor and track and enhance economic development. I think for the state to succeed, LSU has to be a leader.
As you can tell, we don't lack ambition. You said you had more questions? Yes,
Yeah, I was just going to comment that that was well said, and I think it's absolutely true for Louisiana to succeed. LSU is going to have to be the leader in that regard, and I think certainly I could bring that kind of leadership, working with the folks in the legislature, the governor, and also with private industry, because it's going to take significant private investment, I believe. That probably will have to follow the public investment. So can I just add one more comment to that, because he reminded me of something.
Yes, we have
that happened in Florida, because I was there for many years where the budgets were not increasing, they were being cut, where things were just where we had plans and worked on plans for years and years to move from the top 25 into the top 10, and we could never get to the top 10. Well, Florida is now ranked 6th. Just a few years ago, it moved up to number 9. And I believe one of the reasons that happened is that there was those conversations moved up higher over the years until, and I believe Governor Rick Scott was there when this happened, and he got the legislature to invest in public higher education. And not only did the University of Florida rise from top 25 to top 10, but Florida State University has now popped into the top 20. That's another one of my alma maters. They're now the 20th ranked because the state made that significant investment in higher education, and the University of South Florida is not far behind those institutions. So the state invested, and all boats rose with the tide.
Thank you.
My second question, if we have time.
Yes.
Okay. I've read the leadership profile. It's a very involved profile. There's lots of things, and I'm experienced in how these things are put together. And I believe we can check boxes, and I can check a box on all of those things. But I did want to hear from you on, aside from looking at the leadership profile as a whole, what do you need most in the next president?
Well, as you could tell, this position is very complicated because it's president and chancellor. But what we need most is strong leadership. Strong leadership that is integrated with the LSU community, all the LSU campuses, not just Baton Rouge, but all the campuses, and represents the community to the world, to the state, to the governor, to the legislature, but to the nation and to the world. That's how I read your question, but again, I welcome other answers.
Dr. Alexander, I'll jump in on that as well, following Dr. Gonzalez's comments. We are in such trying times, not just in Louisiana, we realize that, but across the country. But LSU has faced a unique set of challenges. And right now, we see a strong opportunity to not only come out of these difficult times as the known leader, but to also be a trailblazer. We've talked today about the COVID crisis. We've talked today about Title IX. We've talked about athletics, and we've talked about academics. We've talked about research and entrepreneurship. All of these things are things we are looking for in our next leader to be able to help us garner the conversation, bring all our resources together, bring all our constituencies together, bring the business people of Baton Rouge alongside the students of this campus and all of our campuses, bring our researchers alongside our practicing medical staff and faculty, do all these things. It's a tremendous challenge, but We know that even though LSU has been in the not so wonderful spotlight lately, that, we have great potential to come out of this. And we are looking for the leader who can help us harness all these conversations, deal with our issues, make steadfast progress, and then, continue to help LSU overcome the challenges of budgets and legislative issues and all those things to really refocus and recenter back to where we need to be as a leader in higher education in this country.
Thank you. I think our time is up, but we want to thank you so much again for coming to meet us, for being interested in this position that we are looking so much forward to, and for taking the time today and for your very, very thoughtful answers.
Wonderful. I thank you for this opportunity, and I've enjoyed visiting my home state, even if it is through electronics. Well, I hope you have a most successful time today, and I look forward to hearing from you soon.
Thanks, Dr. Alexander.
Thank you.